Welcome occultists to another video. In light of the year coming to an end, this collection of stories seem to fit the mood. If you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Whether you have your New Year's resolution thought out or not, hold on tight and let's begin. My name is Ella, and New Year's Eve has always been a symbol of new beginnings, of hope and celebration. But last year, it became a night of terror, a haunting memory that lurks in the shadows of every cheer and countdown. As a single mother, my life revolved around my son, but on that fateful night, I decided to take my best friend Lisa's advice and let my hair down a little. Little did I know, it would lead us down a path of horror. The party was in full swing when we arrived, the air electric with excitement and anticipation. Music pulsed through the room, a rhythmic heartbeat that fueled the joyous atmosphere. Lisa, always the life of the party, pulled me into the crowd, her laughter infectious. That's when I met him, Tom, a man whose charm and good looks seemed too good to be true. We hit it off immediately, our conversation flowing effortlessly. He was attentive, his gaze lingering, and for a moment, I allowed myself to get lost in the fantasy of a New Year's romance. As the night progressed, Tom offered to get us drinks. I watched him weave through the crowd, a sense of unease creeping into my mind. It was probably just nerves, I reasoned, the result of being out of the dating game for so long. He returned with our drinks, a charming smile on his face. To new beginnings, he toasted, raising his glass. But before I could take a sip, Lisa, ever the impulsive one, grabbed my drink and downed it in one go, laughing. Tom's expression changed then, a flash of anger in his eyes that he quickly masked. "Lisa, that was meant for Ella," he said, his voice strained. "Oh, don't be a grump, Tom. It's just a drink," Lisa teased, oblivious to the tension. As the night wore on, Lisa became increasingly unwell, her laughter turning to slurred words, her steps unsteady. Concerned, I decided to take her upstairs to one of the guest rooms to rest. Tom insisted on helping, his demeanor overly eager. Something about it didn't sit right with me, but my focus was on Lisa, who was now struggling to stay conscious. We reached the guest room, a quiet space away from the noise of the party. As I laid Lisa on the bed, Tom closed the door behind us, his expression darkening. "What's wrong with Lisa?" I asked, my voice laced with worry. "She drank your drink," he said, a sinister tone in his voice. "I had plans for you, Ella. You were supposed to be the one lying there." Fear gripped me as the realization of his intentions hit. He had tried to drug me, to take advantage of me, but Lisa had inadvertently saved me by drinking the poison meant for me. I moved to the door, but Tom was quicker, blocking my path. "You're not going anywhere," he sneered, advancing towards me. Panic surged through me. I had to protect Lisa and myself. "Stay away from us," I warned, my voice trembling. Tom laughed, a sound void of any sanity. "You think you can stop me? You're both at my mercy now." A struggle ensued, a desperate fight for survival. I fought with a ferocity I didn't know I had, adrenaline fueling my actions. Tom was strong, but I was determined, my maternal instinct a powerful force. In the midst of the chaos, Lisa, despite her dazed state, managed to hit Tom with a lamp, giving us a brief advantage. I seized the moment, pushing past him and opening the door. The noise from the struggle had attracted attention. Guests and the host rushed in, their expressions turning to shock at the scene before them. Tom was apprehended, his plans thwarted, his true nature revealed. The police arrived soon after, their questions a blur as I tried to process what had happened. Lisa was taken to the hospital, her condition stable but serious. I stayed by her side, the guilt of what she had endured because of me a heavy weight on my soul. As the clock struck midnight, the sounds of celebration from the party below were a bitter reminder of our ordeal. The new year had begun, but for us, it was marked by terror and betrayal. The aftermath was a mix of police reports, hospital visits, and a lingering fear that refused to fade. Tom was charged, but the shadow of that night remained, a dark specter hovering over our lives. Now, as I recount this tale, the memories still haunt me. The cheers and countdowns of New Year's Eve are no longer a joyous sound but a reminder of the night when our lives hung in the balance, a night when the chime of the clock marked not a new beginning, but a descent into horror. And as I sit here, with Lisa finally recovering, I can't help but wonder about the demons that lurk behind charming smiles, about the unseen dangers that hide in plain sight. The world has shown me its darkest face, and now, every celebration, every cheerful toast, is tinged with the memory of that fateful New Year's Eve. The future is uncertain, a path shrouded in shadows. And as I try to move forward, I'm left with a haunting question: what other horrors lurk in the moments waiting to be celebrated, in the seconds before the clock strikes 12? The answer is a silence that speaks of fears unspoken, leaving me to wonder if the terror of that night is truly over, or if it's just the beginning. My name is Harold, and I've lived a long life, filled with its fair share of joys and sorrows. Yet, nothing could have prepared me for the horror that befell me one cold December evening, a night that would forever change my view of the world and the people in it. I was heading to see my family for a belated Christmas celebration, my arms laden with carefully wrapped presents. The air was brisk, the streets lined with festive lights, a contrast to the darkness that was about to descend upon me. I reached the bus stop, a quiet little spot on the edge of town, the bench cold under me as I sat waiting for the next bus. The street was deserted, the festive cheer a distant echo in this part of the city. That's when they appeared, three figures, emerging from the shadows, their intentions clear in their masked faces and the glint of steel in their hands. Fear gripped me, a primal, suffocating dread. I was no match for them, my age at disadvantage in this unexpected confrontation. "Please," I pleaded, my voice trembling. "Take whatever you want, but don't hurt me." Their laughter was cruel, devoid of any humanity. "We'll take what we want, old man," one sneered, stepping closer. "But we might just hurt you for the fun of it." What followed was a blur of pain and terror. They tore the presents from my hands, rifling through them with disdain. When they found nothing of value, their anger turned to violence. I tried to defend myself, but I was no match for their brutality. They beat me, their fists and boots relentless, each strike a hammer blow to my body and soul. I fell to the ground, the cold pavement a harsh contrast to the warmth of the blood that trickled from my wounds. They left me there, broken and bleeding, the night air filled with their mocking laughter as they disappeared into the darkness. Lying there, the pain was overwhelming, but worse was the sense of violation, of a life's worth of dignity stripped away in a moment of senseless violence. I thought of my family, of the joy we were supposed to share, now tainted by this act of cruelty. Somehow, I found the strength to pull myself to my feet, my body screaming in protest. I staggered to the nearest store, the owner's gasp a mirror to my battered appearance. The police were called, their questions a distant echo as I struggled to stay conscious. I gave them a description, but my mind was a whirlwind of pain and shock. The officers were sympathetic, their eyes reflecting a sadness that spoke of having seen too much of this kind of cruelty. They promised they would do everything they could to catch the perpetrators. I spent that night in the hospital, my body a map of bruises and cuts, my heart heavy with a sorrow that went deeper than physical pain. My family arrived, their faces etched with worry and anger, their presence a small comfort in the darkness that enveloped me. The next few days were a haze of police lineups, pain medication, and a deep, unshakable sense of fear. I flinched at every shadow, every unexpected sound a potential threat. Then came the news: the police had caught them, 3 young men whose lives had taken a turn into the darkest of paths. Relief was my first reaction, followed quickly by a hollow feeling of despair. Their capture wouldn't undo what they had done, wouldn't erase the scars they had left, both physical and emotional. The trial was a cold, clinical affair. The perpetrators showed no remorse, their eyes empty of any guilt or understanding of the pain they had inflicted. They were sentenced, the gavel's final sound a hollow victory in the face of what I had lost. As I sit here now, recounting this tale, the physical wounds have healed, but the emotional scars remain. The world feels different, more menacing, a place where darkness lurks in unexpected corners. I try to move on, to find some semblance of normality, but the fear remains, a constant companion in my once peaceful life. The joy of family gatherings is now tinged with the memory of that night, a reminder of how quickly light can turn to darkness. The robbery wasn't just a theft of possessions, it was a robbery of trust, of security, of a belief in the inherent goodness of people. And as I face each day, I can't help but wonder if that sense of safety, of peace, is forever lost to me. The world continues to turn, the festive lights still shine, but for me, they shine on a world forever altered, a world where the shadows hold more than just the absence of light. And as I try to find my way through this new reality, I'm left with a haunting question: can the spirit of trust and joy ever be reclaimed, once it has been so violently taken away? My name is James, and for the past 10 years, prison walls had been my world, a relentless reminder of a past I couldn't escape. But as the last week of December dawned, so did my freedom. The gates opened, and I stepped out, a man reborn yet haunted by the shadows of my incarceration. The air of freedom was both exhilarating and terrifying. I had dreamed of this moment, yet now that it was here, I felt adrift, a soul unmoored from the anchor of routine and confinement. The world had moved on without me, and as I walked the streets of my old neighborhood, I was a ghost, a remnant of a life long gone. My return was met with wary eyes and hushed whispers. I was an outcast, the ex-con, the man who had paid his debt yet was still shackled by society's judgment. I sought solace in isolation, a small apartment on the edge of town, my refuge from the world's condemning gaze. As New Year's Eve approached, the festive cheer was a stark contrast to the darkness that enveloped my heart. I watched from my window as people laughed and celebrated, their joy a language I no longer understood. The night of New Year's Eve arrived, a cacophony of fireworks and music filling the air. I sat alone in my dimly lit room, the bottle of whiskey my only companion. The clock ticked towards midnight, each second a reminder of the life I had lost, the mistakes I couldn't undo. Then, a knock at the door shattered the silence. I hesitated, my mind racing with paranoia. No one had visited me since my release. Cautiously, I approached the door and opened it to a face from the past, a ghost from the life I had left behind. "Hello, James," said Mike, a former associate from my darker days, his smile a predator's grin. "Thought I'd come and see how freedom's treating you." His presence was a chilling wind, stirring memories I had tried to bury. "What do you want, Mike?" I asked, my voice tinged with apprehension. "Just to catch up, have a drink, celebrate the new year," he replied, pushing past me into the apartment. As we sat and drank, Mike's conversation turned sinister. He spoke of a plan, a way to get back at those who had wronged us, to reclaim what was ours. The whiskey twisted his words into serpentine shapes, weaving a dark allure that I struggled to resist. "You owe me, James." "I looked out for you inside," Mike pressed, his eyes cold and calculating. I knew what he was asking. A return to the life that had cost me a decade, a dive back into the abyss. "No, Mike. That part of my life is over," I said, the words a lifeline I clung to amidst a storm of temptation. Mike's expression darkened, his demeanor shifting from friendly to threatening. "You don't get to walk away, James. You're in this, whether you like it or not." Fear and defiance warred within me. The old life called, its siren song a dangerous whisper against the backdrop of fireworks outside. "I'm not that person anymore, Mike." "I can't go back to that," I insisted, my resolve a fragile shield against the darkness. The clock struck midnight, the sound of death knelt to the peace I had sought. Mike stood, his anger a palpable force. "You'll regret this, James. You can't hide from who you are." He left, the door slamming shut behind him, leaving me alone with the ghosts of my past and the fear of what the future held. The sounds of celebration outside were a world away, a life I could never be part of. As I sat there, the whiskey bottle empty, the realization hit me: freedom was a prison of its own, a confinement built of regrets and fears. The shadows of my past were ever present, a constant reminder of the man I had been, the man I feared I still was. The night wore on, the festive lights outside a cruel mockery of the darkness within me. I was free, yet trapped, caught in the web of my past transgressions. And as the first light of the new year dawned, I was left to wonder what it held for me. Would I be able to forge a new path, or would the shadows of my past drag me back into the abyss? The answer was a void, a silence that echoed with the ghosts of a life long gone. And as I faced the new year, I was haunted by the knowledge that freedom came with its chains, that the road ahead was a path shrouded in darkness, a journey into the unknown that I feared I was not strong enough to travel. My name is Ethan, and what was supposed to be a simple movie date the day before New Year's Eve turned into the darkest chapter of my life. I had been dating Jenna for 6 weeks, and though she was a bit enigmatic, I was captivated by her charm and wit. Little did I know, behind her alluring smile was a plan so sinister, it would shatter my world completely. We decided to see a late-night horror movie, a fitting genre given what was to unfold. The theater was almost empty, a few scattered couples lost in the flickering light of the screen. Jenna snuggled close to me as the movie began, her hand finding mine in the dim light. Halfway through the movie, she whispered, "I need to use the bathroom. Be right back." Her kiss was soft, distracting, a prelude to her disappearance. Minutes turned into an eternity, and Jenna hadn't returned. Concern gnawed at me. I left the theater, the eerie quiet of the empty lobby sending a chill down my spine. "Jenna?" I called, but there was no answer, just the echo of my voice in the vast, deserted space. I checked the bathrooms, the concession stand, even the parking lot. Nothing. Panic set in. Had something happened to her? I pulled out my phone to call her, but before I could dial, a hand clamped over my mouth, and an arm locked around my neck. Struggling was useless. I was dragged into a waiting car, the world outside blurring into a whirlwind of fear and confusion. Inside, 2 men, their faces grim and determined, and Jenna, her eyes cold, devoid of any emotion I had come to know. "Ethan, you're such an easy mark," she sneered as the car sped away. "All it took was a little charm, and you fell right into our trap." The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This was a setup, a con orchestrated by Jenna and her accomplices. I was the unwitting victim, lured by a facade of affection and warmth. "What do you want from me?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper against the crushing weight of betrayal. "Your life savings, Ethan," one of the men said, his voice menacing. "Transfer it to the account we specify, or this will end very badly for you." My mind raced, thoughts of escape, of resistance, but I was powerless, trapped in a nightmare of deceit and treachery. With trembling hands, I transferred my savings, every penny I had worked for, into the account they provided. They drove for hours, the night endless, a twisted journey with no destination. Finally, as dawn broke, they stopped the car in a desolate area, far from the city's lights. "Get out," Jenna ordered, a cold smile playing on her lips. "Consider yourself lucky, Ethan. We're letting you go." I stumbled out of the car, my body numb, my mind a whirlwind of shock and disbelief. The car sped off, leaving me alone in the cold light of dawn, robbed of everything I had. The walk back to civilization was a blur. I reported the incident to the police, but Jenna and her accomplices were like ghosts, vanished into the ether with my life savings. In the days that followed, I was a shell of myself, a man broken by betrayal and fear. The world was a different place now, a landscape of shadows and distrust. Jenna's laughter, her touch, her lies, they haunted me, a constant reminder of the cruelty that lurked beneath the surface of a smile. I moved to a new city, started a new job, but the scars remained. Trust was a luxury I could no longer afford, every stranger a potential threat, every kind word a possible deceit. The police continued their search, but Jenna was a specter, a master of disguise and manipulation. I followed the case, clinging to the hope of justice, but as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, that hope faded into the background of my new reality. Now, as I sit here, recounting this tale, the horror of that night still lingers, a dark cloud over my existence. The movie theater, the late-night drive, Jenna's betrayal, they are all etched in my memory, a nightmare that refuses to end. I've learned to live with the fear, with the distrust that colors my every interaction. But the question remains, where is Jenna now? What other lives is she destroying with her web of lies and deceit? The answer is a silence that speaks of unspeakable things, a void where my trust and security once lived. And as I face each day, I can't help but wonder if the shadows that follow me are just remnants of my past, or if Jenna is still out there, watching, waiting to strike again. My name is David, and what happened to me over those months still sends shivers down my spine. It was New Year's Eve, a night when the world celebrates new beginnings, but for me, it became the start of a living nightmare. The evening was supposed to be a simple outing. My friends and I decided to dine at a local restaurant, a place buzzing with the anticipation of the coming year. That's where I first noticed her, a woman at the bar, her gaze fixated on me in a way that made me uneasy. I tried to ignore it, attributing it to the festive spirit of the night. In the days that followed, my life took a sinister turn. I started receiving anonymous letters at my home, filled with racy photos and disturbing messages. Each envelope was more explicit than the last, a twisted expression of desire and obsession. I tried to dismiss them, but the letters kept coming, their content growing more alarming. When they began arriving at my workplace and even to my family's homes, I realized the gravity of the situation. Someone was stalking me, and they knew far too much about my life. I reported it to the police, but without concrete evidence, they could do little. I felt helpless, a pawn in a game played by a faceless predator. The constant fear of being watched, of being followed, consumed me. Then, one night, the terror escalated. I came home to find my apartment broken into, my personal belongings scattered. Among the chaos was a note, the handwriting unmistakably hers. "I'm always close, David. Always watching." The intrusion was a violation of the sanctuary I once called home. I felt exposed, vulnerable. The police began an investigation, but the woman, it seemed, was a ghost. I learned from the detectives that she was wanted for multiple crimes over the past 2 years. Her pattern was always the same: infatuation, stalking, and then violence. It was a chilling realization that I was the latest in her line of obsessions. Sleep became elusive, each night a battle against the shadows of fear. My friends and family urged me to stay with them, but I refused. I couldn't let my terror disrupt more lives than it already had. As the weeks passed, the letters and photos stopped. The police patrols around my neighborhood were frequent, a small comfort in the storm of my anxiety. Just when I thought it might be over, that she had moved on, she made her final, terrifying move. It was late one evening, the world outside quiet, the only sound the distant hum of the city. I was about to turn in for the night when I heard a noise outside my window. My heart pounded as I approached, the memories of her letters and the break-in flooding back. Peering through the blinds, I saw a figure crouched in the bushes. It was her. The moonlight cast an eerie glow on her face, her eyes wild with a dangerous mix of desire and madness. She held something in her hand, a syringe. I called the police, my voice a mix of fear and relief. This was it, the mistake that would finally lead to her capture. They arrived within minutes, the night erupting into shouts and flashing lights. She tried to flee, but the officers were quick, apprehending her before she could escape. As they handcuffed her, our eyes met. Her gaze, once filled with obsession, was now empty, defeated. The aftermath was a whirlwind of statements, court dates, and a lingering sense of unease. She was convicted for her crimes, sentenced to a long term behind bars. But the scars she left were indelible, a constant reminder of the terror she had inflicted. Now, as I recount this tale, I realize how profoundly those events changed me. Trust is a luxury I can no longer afford, every stranger a potential threat. The letters, the break-in, her final attempt, they are all etched in my memory, a nightmare that refuses to end. And as I try to rebuild my life, I can't help but wonder about the darkness that resides in some, the twisted paths that lead them to commit such horrors. The world has shown me its most sinister face, and now, every shadow, every unknown face in the crowd, is a reminder of the terror that once stalked me. The police may have caught her, but the fear she instilled lives on, a shadow that looms over every New Year's celebration, every night that falls. And as I try to find peace, I'm left with the haunting question: can we ever truly know the people around us, or are we all just one step away from becoming the prey of the predators hidden among us?